James? Oh, how's it going? You're heading to 6 Mile?
Yeah, man. Fucking longest flight ever.
Where'd you fly in from?
LAX.
Okay.
Via Seattle.
Oh, lovely. Fun.
Yeah.
Fun. It sounded like it was tons of fun.
The place I was at yesterday, they were like, because I was supposed to fly out yesterday morning from LA. They're like, oh, we really need you to stay longer. How much longer can you stay without like costing us any more money for flight changes? And I was like, well, I'll call them and see what they can do. And they're like, oh, we can get you out of LA at 5, but you're going to go to Seattle, and then you're going to go to Detroit. You won't get back to Grand Rapids till about 9 tomorrow morning.
Like, what is this guy doing here? This is not very, keeping the flow of traffic moving.
I mean, I guess I can't bitch too much. I got upgraded to first 2 out of the 3 flights. And
No, well, see, there you go.
I get paid while I'm flying, so.
No, that's not bad then. What kind of work do you do?
Field service engineer.
Okay. So you get to travel a lot then.
Yeah.
I get to travel like 200 miles at a time.
Hey, that counts, man. What do you do?
I just drive.
Oh.
So when I'm driving, I get to be like, oh, I'm a traveling man.
Sure.
Although,
you're married or not, but you could use it at the bar. You know, just be very vague. Be like, yeah, I travel for work.
yeah, I travel for work. You know, like I deal with very important clients all day. Well, like when I do the bar crowd, I always tell
Really,
people.
I've saved people's lives.
I save people's lives on a daily basis.
It's no big deal.
No
Pretty
biggie.
much like the biggest hero in town.
It's like I'm like a fireman except times 10. But every time I drive the bar crowd, I always tell, like, if it's a carload of dudes, I was like, what are your guys' jobs? You know, they'll tell me. And 9 times out of 10, they're like, oh, I work at Myers. And I'm like, oh, dude, no, you're an astronaut. You're a biochemical engineer.
Right? Let's church that up a little bit.
I always tell them, I was like, say something that even you don't know what it is, so then when they ask you what you do, you can be like, oh, I'm a biochemical engineer. I was like, do you know what and they're like, what? And I'm like, no, exactly. Go Google it. And I was like, because to them, it's going to sound like it's an insane amount of money that they make. I was like, and it's almost guaranteed success at that point.
I really don't make that much money. It sounds a lot cooler than it is.
Well, and
Perks are pretty sweet, though.
Well, that's the thing. Like some jobs, they sound really sweet, but they pay really crappy. Like a biochemical engineer, like their median income is like $75K
right.
a year.
Like it's not that much.
Yeah, that's middle class. I mean, it's not.
Right, it's nothing to sneeze at by
Yeah.
any means, but I mean, it's not like you got Ferrari money.
Exactly. I mean, I guess you would after about 10 years.
Yeah, if you didn't spend money
You could
on
get a base
anything
model.
else. And trust me, taxes are, there's no way.
Yeah, taxes are real, like, that's the only saving grace, I think, with driving Uber and being like the right, like, you know, because you get to write up all this mileage at the end of the year. And so I'm like, I was like, you know what? I enjoy writing off all my mileage. I haven't paid in on taxes, and it's been about 6 years now. I've always managed to squeeze just a little bit enough to where I didn't owe anything on federal, and I'm like, you know what? Perfect. Although by all technical standards, that means I'm working at a loss. And I was like, all right, I'll take it. But last year I broke. Well, no, last year was all my ex-wife's fault because she put me on her taxes, and I was like, why would you do that?
Well, what do you claim all year? Do you have, like, deductions taken out?
No, nothing. No deductions are taken out through Uber. Like, it's all.
Oh yeah, you get lucky as hell, then, dude.
Yeah.
It's like I take 0 deductions, like, and so they take a ton of tax out during the year, and I still had to pay in like fucking $3,000 last year.
Like, I think
I hate tax season.
The very first time when I first started working, like, I was doing a lot of internet marketing and like a lot of referral marketing and things like that. I had to pay almost $6,000 in taxes in 2012. And they were like, yeah, you know, you had all this income, and I was blowing this money like left and right. Didn't have any work-related receipts or anything. Like, well, did you keep track of anything? And I was like, no.
Nope.
And I learned after that. I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm never going to get audited again because I had to borrow $6,000 from my dad to pay my tax bill. And I was like, which, I mean, I get why we have to pay taxes. I think that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I understand it.
The taxes we pay, I think, are a little extreme sometimes.
I think another thing I don't like is like how they do it. Like, I don't mind giving like families a tax break, and,
right?
Like low income people, but there is no fucking reason why I should have to pay like upward of 30% of my income to taxes, while like millionaires pay in the 20s and the teens.
Exactly.
Like, where the fuck are the loopholes for guys like me? It's like, oh, you're a single guy, no kids, no family. You're definitely not a burden on society. Give us your fucking money.
Give us 35% of all of your income.
Right. So like that frustrates me, but like, yeah, I don't get too mad when like low income people get tax breaks and stuff like that. It's just like when somebody like freaking Trump, you know, not that I'm a Trump basher, but like he probably pays less income tax than me because he's got an army of freaking tax lawyers.
Right, finding every little loophole
in the world.
They're like, oh, your hair strand moved to the right last year. That's a write-off.
Before I started doing what I do now, I was a tool and die maker.
Okay.
For a couple of years, and like one of the guys I worked with in tool and die was a real piece of fucking work. And he'd like brag during tax time about like all this money that he's getting back and shit. And I'm like, dude, how are you like getting money back? Like, you're upside down on a second mortgage on your house. Like,
right.
You make the same amount of money I do, and I'm not getting shit back. And you don't have any dependents. He's like, oh, I deduct this, and I deduct like all this and this, and I'm like, dude, you fucking cheat on your taxes. That's how you get money back. You realize that, right?
Right, and that's tax fraud. That's a big deal.
And like, I guess I don't have the balls to do that.
Well, it's a risk.
It's also a moral thing too. It's like, come on, you know, that's like pretty much breaking the law.
Right. Well, like my dad's a tool and die maker as well, and he's been doing it for. Let's see, I'm going to be 30 this year, so he's been doing it since I was a kid, since the early 90s. And even to this very day, he barely gets anything back. Like, a few $100.
Yeah,
you know?
That's usually what I get. I got hit hard this year. For I don't know fucking why. I guess I made, like, for some reason they didn't take enough tax out on overtime or something. Right,
and that's the problem. Like, because last year, my dad got a little bit more back, but him and my stepmom they adopted 3 of my stepsister's kids, so you know he had more dependents. But I mean, even at that, he still didn't get like a bragging amount back.
Right.
You know, like this past year when I did my taxes, I paid exactly 0 on federal, and then because of the way that my ex-wife filed, she took all of my state return. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, all of a sudden, it's like, you owe 0 federal. And I was like, perfect. It's like, we're going to give you $1,200 back in state. And I was like, you know what? I'll take $1,200. I was like, I could use $1,200 right now, and then all of a sudden I get a letter, a notice of change, and I was like, notice of change, and it all went to her, and I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, what did she do? And I was looking at it, and she had filed me on her taxes, and I told her, I was like, you know what? I wish you would have paid all of my taxes for me, all of my income. I was like, let you get taxed on, $48,000. I was like, instead of me getting taxed on it.
That's like, I got into an argument with that. Some girl I went to college with a couple weeks ago, she was talking about taxes and shit. She's like, I don't feel like I pay enough taxes personally. She's like, there's so many loopholes for like me, so I don't have to pay taxes. And I'm like, really? I was like, that's fucking great. I'm glad that like you feel you need to pay more. Why don't you pay my fucking taxes?
Right? It's like, why don't you pay my tax bill for me?
if you're feeling so guilty,
Yeah, you're feeling guilty. I mean, there's tons of people that'd love you to pay their taxes for them. But and that's one thing. Like, I've got a buddy out here that drives, and he was not prepared for taxes when, because he was assuming that Uber was taking out taxes throughout the year, and I was like, oh no, man, they don't take taxes out. I was like, no taxes. I was like, why do you think it shows you your base fare? I was like, otherwise it'd show you how much tax was taken out. I was like, they legally would have to show you how much tax they're taking. I was like, and they don't. And so he wasn't sure how he was going to cover it, but with the right deductions, he was able to get it down relatively low. I think he paid like $200 this year in taxes.
Dude, I don't think I could live out in California, man.
Oh, it's way too
taxes
expensive.
Out there? Holy shit. Like, I booked, I flew out on the 5th.
Okay.
And, like, all the freaking hotels, I only had, like, a couple days' notice to book my trip. And everything is packed, it's 4th of July week, everybody's on vacation in California. So I had to go, I usually just book, like, Holiday Inn so I can keep it consistent,
right,
gain points and shit. But I had to go on, like, Booking.com, like, find a fucking hotel. I actually found a badass hotel downtown, not too far from where I was working, so that was cool. And it was like $300 or $308 for 2 nighs, which is killer.
Right.
It's only it comes out to like $150 a night for a 3-star hotel in Los Angeles.
That is true.
That's a great deal. I mean, I usually pay between $120 and $160 for Holiday Inn anywhere in the U.S.
Yeah.
And I get freaking the bill when I check out, and it's like $480. They literally tacked on $180
in taxes. Oh man!
Like the major one was like 27%, and it was like California occupancy tax, and it was like $40-something a day. I was like, what the hell?
You're like, but I'm not an occupant. I'm just here for business. I'm here.
I mean, I'm not paying for it. The customer, and it goes on the company card, but still, I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah, just looking at that bill, going, wow, that's intense.
And then they're like I just Ubered around because California's a freaking nightmare for rental. Well, LA it is anyways. Like, if you ever go out there, I just fucking Uber.
Yeah, I went out to Los
Everywhere
Angeles back in
cheap.
2012, yeah.
But, like, they asked me at the hotel, they're like, oh, do you have a car? And I was like, no. And they're like, oh, okay, well, because if you have a car, it's $35 a day.
Good thing you ain't got a car.
And I was like, seriously? Just to park the fucking car?
I'm like, I hope you guys are gonna like wash down my tires and wash down my car beforehand.
That's why I don't get how people can live out there. And I think that's why like they have all the poor people are like protesting and like
and like the McDonald's people that they want to get $15 an hour.
Because out there the cost of living is so freaking high.
Yeah,
there's no middle class.
Yeah, it's like
there is no middle class. There's either assholes driving around in fucking Ferraris and Maseratis that have all the money, or there's poor people that can't even buy a fucking house.
Exactly. And
because
that's the thing.
shit's so expensive out there.
Well, like, and I just picked up a young lady yesterday, and she used to live out in California, but now she lives in Austin. And she was like, yeah, Grand Rapids is such a small city. And I was like, it is relatively small. I was like, but it does have a lot of little sub-cities around it. I was like, we've got the Walker area, we've got the Plainfield area, Wyoming, Granville, Kentwood. And she's like, well, how much does the average cost of living out here? I was like, for most people, I was like, right now I think minimum wage is like $9 an hour. I'm not 100% sure. It's been a long time since I've worked for minimum wage. But and I was like, I think it's like $9 an hour. I was like, but the average person that makes more than minimum wage, I was like, they're probably making about $14 to $15 an hour,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. If you look at like a standard labor job, it's 14 to 15.
You know, if you go into a factory or a shop after you get hired in, or after like a 90-day probationary period, it's going to probably be about 14 or 15 bucks an hour. And we were talking about the McDonald's employees that in Chicago were like, oh, we need $15 an hour. I was like, you know, no, because that would make a gallon of milk $11.75. You know, just throwing a number out there. I mean, it would jack up the price.
Well, and the other thing that these people don't understand is that going from like the minimum wage of like $7.40 or $8, whatever it is right now, up to $15, they are going to pretty much double their tax that they have to pay. So at the end of the week, they're not going to gain as much as they think they're going to on their bottom line, take-home pay. And that's what's the thing people don't understand at all is like, you're going to bump a tax bracket. You realize your tax is going to go from like 13% to like 23.
Yeah, exactly. And then and one thing I told her, I was like, you know, and a big difference maker when it came to like good employees versus bad employees at a place like McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, whatever. If there was more of a gap in income between like a normal, you know, drive-through cook versus like a shift manager.
Right.
You know, if there was like an actual gap, like $1.50 gap. Like, oh, you're going to be a shift manager, you're going to make $1.50 more. That would make good employees try to work harder. So then they wouldn't always be hiring for managers, and you know, wouldn't always have to be looking for them because it would make people want to stay. Because as it is now, like when somebody goes from like standard production into a management spot at a fast food place, it's like a 50-cent raise. So it's like getting a shift premium. And they're getting more responsibility, having to deal with more shit from people. I wouldn't want to do it. I'm like, nope, I'm good. But yeah, I don't know, like when I started driving Uber last year, and I was like, I'm gonna end up getting screwed in taxes. Like, I'm sure next year I'll get even more screwed because I'm like, oh, no more able to write off everything I want to write off. Like, I usually just write off mileage when I do my taxes, because this car's a 2007. It's not really worth writing off too much on it. Vehicle depreciation is like non-existent on it. So when I had my Civic, though, I wrote my Civic off for vehicle depreciation. But then you can't claim the full 54 cents per mile, and I was like, oh, it's like, that's okay though. So I get to see what next year will bring tax-wise. Also, I'm going to get a bill for like $5,000. Like, you need to pay this. I'm like, well, IRS, I'll pay you this time.
I always wondered like how long like the average person could go.
I think
saying like fuck you to the IRS.
I think it's like 5 years. I think, because after that, I want to say, you know, it's tax evasion, obviously, and so that's punishable by up to X amount of years in prison. Because that's what happened to a dude that played Blade in the Blade movies. Like,
oh yeah, Wesley Snipes.
Yeah. Because he was in prison for like, I think 7 or 8 years because he never paid his taxes.
That's just stupid. When you got that kind of money, you should be able to pay your taxes.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, when you think about it, they're like, all right, if you get paid $1 million for starring in a movie, you know that's all like 1099 though. So they've got to pay tax on all of it, and most of them do live out in California. So tag on California taxes on top of that. Oh, that $1 million is going to turn into like $300,000 very, very quickly. It's going to take away all your income. I mean, some of the movie stars, I mean, they're getting paid way too much money to play in movies. I also watched that Beauty and the Beast movie, the remake.
I almost watched that on the plane, but I didn't feel comfortable. I thought it was weird.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Like,
it's like a movie from when I was a kid, though.
I know. Like, I would say I don't know. I wasn't really liking it. I was a much bigger fan of the cartoon from yesteryear. But I also told my girlfriend, I was like, you know, I was like, she suffered from Stockholm syndrome. I was like, he would not let her leave.
Oh shit.
And I
Like you look at things a little different now you're an adult. You're like, that's
you
kinda
do.
fucking
Like
crazy.
you look at things really jaded as an older adult. Like think of like Aladdin. Okay, Princess Jasmine, she wanted a dude with money, which is gold digger. That's the only reason she gave Aladdin the time of day was because he was a prince
Right.
and he had a genie.
Doesn't really teach good.
That's what I'm saying. Like it does. They're like, oh, it's a love story. No, it's not a love story. It's a story about a gold digger. You know, and I'm just like, oh man. I was like, that's fun. And my girlfriend said I ruined all of the Disney movies for her. I was like, I'm sorry. And then I told her about like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I was like, chick lives in a house with 7 dudes. You know, and then like Sleeping Beauty. I was like, what if that's unwanted touching on the part of him kissing her when she wakes up? I was like, that, go to prison for that.
Being politically correct.
Although there was one movie by Disney, I always forget the title of it, but I think it's called Radio Flyer, and it's like about the Radio Flyer like wagon, and it's these 2 little brothers, and their dad like left them with their mom or whatever. Their mom gets this new boyfriend. Well, this story's narrated by Tom Hanks, like in the 3rd person, because he's the older brother, and he's like narrating when they were kids. Well, when you watch this movie when you're a kid, you see the youngest brother fly away on this red wagon. You know, they put a little boat motor in it, and it flies away. Now, as an adult, you already know that that's not physically possible. The little red wagon is not going to fly. And one of the last scenes in the movie shows the little brother flying away, but it shows the stepdad on his knees with cops around him with bloody hands, and blood's all over the place. You don't correlate this when you're a kid because you're like, oh, he got away, he survived. But I watched it with my son.
They're like, wait.
Right, and I was like, wait a second. I was like, okay, so the stepdad was an alcoholic, and it always, you know, played a song when he beat his stepkids, and it correlates. And of course, you go on like IMDb and you're like reading the message board, and you're like, he beat the kid to death. Like that was what actually happened. Because as Tom Hanks, in the older perspective, is telling his kids about what happened. You know, he's like, yeah, he flew away, and he's crying when he says it. So then you're like, okay, he did not fly away. And my son's like, he flew away, right? And I'm like, yeah, totally flew away. Watch it in 15 years, and you'll change your perspective. And it's weird how you pick up on things like that as you get older. Like you don't.
Oh yeah.
And that was one thing that always really stuck out. Like I was like, man, when I get older, it's like all these great movies are gonna be the same. No, they're not.
That's one thing I hit like, I was probably like 20, 23, 24, and like, I just stopped giving a shit about really anybody or anything. Like, I don't care anymore. I like,
well, it's hard
I used
to care.
Like, want people to like me, and now I'm like, God, I hope these motherfuckers don't like me.
Right? God, I hope I don't have to come back here.
Please leave me the fuck alone. Like, my list of, like, my group of friends has gotten so small, it's down to like 3 people.
Yeah, that's kind of
fine with that.
Yeah, I'm kind of at that point too. Like I'm like I've got my really close friends, and I've got like the friends that I might, you know, like say hey to, but
right.
Most of the time I just like to keep to myself, and a lot of my like my friend out here that drives, you know, he's probably my best friend. You know, like we just know we don't want to talk to each other. Like we're just like, you know what, don't want to be bothered right now, whatever. But then I've got other friends that kind of dwell on like drama.
Oh yeah, see, I can't do that.
That's the thing. Like I am very anti-drama. I was like, either say what you got to say or be done with it. You know, and that's a large thing with my family too. Like my mother's side of the family really likes to egg situations on, and I was like, really? I was like, is that really benefiting anybody? No. I was like, what good does it do to be pissed off all the time with all that? I was like, it doesn't help.
Yeah. Like, I kind of grew up that. My old man's a good guy, but he had a fucking really bad temper when we were kids. And, dude, I can't remember the last time I've had to raise my voice. Like,
I think the last time I raised my... Well, I would say the last time I raised my voice was when I told my ex that we should get a divorce, but I want to say, I didn't raise my voice when I told her that, because I just got out of work and I saw some shit on her phone, and I was like, you know what? I was like, you want to talk about this? And she goes, I think you should. I was like, all right, well, good. I was like, then I guess I'm just gonna move out. And I think I stayed pretty calm about it, because I like tossed the phone up that I'd bought and it like broke. And she's like, that was my phone. And I was like, bitch, I paid for it. I was like, see you later. But like with my girlfriend now, like, we don't really, like, I mean, we've had a couple of like little arguments, but they end real quick. Like,
Right.
they just, and it's just to that point where it's not even, it doesn't solve anything arguing and yelling about it. Like, might as well just talk about it in a understanding tone and be like, look, what can we do to not have this happen anymore?
I know when I was like 15, 16, the shows like on Discovery Channel, the people that live in Alaska, like all isolated and shit, first they're coming out, getting popular, watching and be like, what the fuck's around with these people? Like, why would they want to do that? And now every day I get older and I'm like, I could totally do that.
This is what I'm saying. Like,
Awesome.
I could totally do it. I could do it.
Like,
I think I'd be
I understand now.
Well, and one of the things, like, with TV nowadays, like, remember when that Teen Mom show was first coming out on TV years ago? Well, with my ex, she tries to make every interaction between us like that.
Oh, God.
And I told her, I was like, Melinda, I was like, they get paid to make those types of interactions with each other. I was like, they get sponsors that are paying for that shit, but that's because that's supposed to be reality TV. I was like, we don't get paid for that. I was like, we either are going to wind up in jail or ending up paying more money. I told her that the last time that...
it's not reality.
Right. I told her, you know, the last time we were in our, like, mediation meeting, I brought it up in front of the mediator, and the mediator kind of looked at me. I was like, look, I was like, hey, this is supposed to be a place where I can say whatever I've got to say without judgment. I was like, and I was quiet for about 10 years about all this shit. And I was like, so I'm just kind of letting it out now. You know, and I told her, I was like, so this acting like you're 15 again needs to stop. I was like, because you're not 15, you're almost 30 years old. You gotta stop that shit. You know, and our son isn't getting any younger. He's gonna be 11 this year. You know, and kids notice stuff. They listen a lot more than people realize. You know, like, he knows way too many details about, like, the divorce proceedings. And I brought that up. Like, the mediator brought it up to me. I was like, I don't know why you're telling me. I was like, you need to tell this one right here. I was like, I don't talk about her when he's around me. I was like, she doesn't exist at that point.
Right. Well, it doesn't help anybody. You know, it's not gonna make. It's gonna make you look probably worse than her. You know.
Yeah.
Because just such a bad example. You know, talk shit about people that aren't there.
Well, exactly. That's what I told her. I was like, why? And I told her that before. I was like, what good does it do to run me down in front of our son? I was like, I like our son. I never wanted kids. I ain't gonna lie, I never wanted kids. But I love my son to death, man. I could never replace him. You know, and my girlfriend's got 3 kids, so we get every other week we get 4 kids. A nice big cluster of children in our house in Holland, and I'm just like, oh yay, tons of kids. Now at that moment, if I could trade them out, I just might. Maybe. I don't know. Sometimes they're pretty cool about stuff. But
Yeah, I don't have any kids, but I have 2 nieces. They're 7 and 3.
Okay.
And I go home like twice a year. Usually spend a week each time with them. You know, stay at my sister's place and do shit. And usually about 3 months after I leave, I'm like, man, I really miss the kids. You know, maybe I should have kids. Maybe I should settle down.
And then you're like,
and then I'll go back and I'll spend like the first 2 days with them, and by like day 3, I'm like, no,
you're reminded of why,
kids.
Yeah, and then you're reminded why you didn't want kids. That's how it always happens. That's how it always happens too.
Like, they're really fun as long as they're not yours and you can walk away.
Exactly. Like, you can walk away, no repercussions at all. You know, you can be like, you know what? I'm just gonna go home, guys. See you later. They're like, we don't want you to leave. You can't do that as a parent, because then they're like, hey, you can't just leave your kid in Walmart's parking lot.
Well, you can.
Yeah, I guess you could.
They're gonna track you down though.
And I read this story on Facebook. I don't know if it might be legit, but this dude he worked at a Home Depot. Apparently there was a kidnapping that him and a coworker prevented from happening. And like, the dude had phoned the police or whatever when it was happening. They said to follow the guy that was trying to kidnap him or whatever. I don't foresee the police telling him to follow, but Maybe it did.
Yeah.
Maybe it did. I mean, every time I've ever had an interaction with the police, like if I was reporting like a drunk driver that I knew was drunk driving, they asked what direction he or she was heading, and I was like, "Well, I'm heading this way down this road." And they're like, "Okay." They said don't follow him, but hang back at a distance. If he makes a turn, let us know. You know, they don't want to cause anybody any additional.
Right, because they could be at fault. You know, if they tell you
Yeah.
you get hurt, then it's their problem.
Exactly. And well, anyways, so the Home Depot apparently fired this guy for, you know, breaking safety policy at work. And I was like, well, I can kind of this one right here, and I can kind of understand like their standpoint on that. But if he did actually prevent the kidnapping, like with them firing him for that, that's questionable. Like, and then they apparently reversed their decision once the corporate office got hold of it. So I was like, oh man, I was like, that's a tricky situation to be in.
Right.
Let me grab that hatch for you.
People are commenting on like, oh my god,
Exactly.
it's like this is so things that never happened for 500, please.
Exactly. Things that never happened for 1,000. Double or nothing.
Or something.
Oh.